Today's guest, Josh Arnold, didn't plan to be a mechanic. He picked it off a college list like you'd pick a random number at a raffle. Day one on the job, his future mentor told him to quit. I'm pretty sure several of you, including me, have been told the same thing. And honestly, he probably should have, right? The story goes, he's cocky out of tech school, miles behind everybody else. Sounds bloody well familiar, doesn't it? But Josh didn't quit. As you can see in front of us right now, he did not quit. Instead, he hit the grind, like all of us do. He hit flat rate, overtime, 6 days a week, learning the hard way, like most of us do. Fast forward, now he's a Toyota and Subaru Master Tech. He's a zone champion. And the reason why we're even having this conversation in the first place, he's the MyKarma Grand Prix Champion. And we'll get into that a little bit later because that's super cool. But he's the Grand Prix champion, a trainer in the shop, and he's the kind of guy who wants to prove that the struggle in this trade is worth it. This is the real, raw journey of Josh Arnold on the Wrench Turners podcast. Josh, thank you very much for showing up and giving us some of your time today.
Thanks for the kind intro.
You're awesome, buddy. Trust me when I say you're awesome. To make sure that all of you out there understand, I've had 2 people send me notes prior to a show. Josh is one of them. 160 episodes deep, 2 people have sent me notes. What am I going to do with it? I'm absolutely going to crush the intro so the man gets all of the props he deserves. So folks, without further ado, let's jump into this. As we usually do, we have the series of questions that we talk about. What got this person into the automotive industry or into the trade? What was their first year like? What's their story thus far? And what's their one piece of advice to help technicians be happier, healthier, more productive? So let's crush it out. What's the first question? What got you into the trade, Josh?
Well, kind of as you said, a bit of luck, a little bit of randomness, but in my high school experience, they had stripped automotive programs at that time. So the CTE program had woodworking and welding, and by the time I was a senior and had left the program, they were just starting to get the funding back, and they had just actually opened the automotive 1 year after I'd left. So I was always involved in CTE at high school, but I never got to experience automotive. So it kind of left a mystery thing to me because I had done welding, woodworking, drafting, pretty much anything hands-on, I was for it. And so I wanted to pursue that. I knew that. And then I had what was called Oregon Grant, which was like 50% off any community colleges in Oregon, state of Oregon, because you have a certain GPA, something along those lines. So I went over to the CTE program in Umpqua Community College. I just kind of thumbed through everything. I knew I didn't want to be a welder. I had done a lot of that in high school. I had gone to a couple competitions for that, and it was
You didn't want to make any money, right?
I didn't want to make any money the easy way.
You didn't want to be welding. Yeah. All the welders are making all the money right now. They're making so much money, it's ridiculous. It's good on them. Like anybody who's out there welding and crushing it, because I've heard some of the pay stubs that are on some of those welders' trucks. They're doing really well for themselves, and I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt that I didn't take welding.
Yeah,
but
no, I had experienced that, and I knew there was good money in it. But like I said, I think it was just the mystery of not knowing. And I basically went and I saw automotive in the section, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to kind of run my finger down, and we'll kind of go for it because, well, I don't really have a direction in what I wanted to do. I was 18 and I had that opportunity, and I just knew that I was going to approach it like I've done everything up to that point, which is basically figure it out. So I found T10 program, and another random coincidence here is that this T10 program at UCC was on its last legs. And so you were supposed to have 2 years of experience to get into this program. And again, I went up to the instructor or the guy to apply, and I told him, listen, I have no experience. I'm just interested. And because they were so low on students, they grabbed me in and they said, yeah, we'll take you. I shouldn't have been able to get into the program. So I was already starting 2 years behind, but I was really impressed with Toyota. I liked the way that they had ran their company, and their brand is all about quality over quantity, building something that lasts. I looked into a lot of that before I decided to even approach the program. So when I saw
Interesting.
So when I saw T10, I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good place to start, if any. So the next thing was to pick a location, because the T10 program, you basically have to get sponsored by a dealership to be able to enter the program. And so you can imagine the sales pitch of no experience, 2 years behind. Also, keep in mind, 18-year-old kid. And I also didn't want to stay in my hometown. I wanted to kind of venture out and try it by myself. So I landed up at Corvallis, and it's a Toyota and Subaru dealership. It is no longer that, but it was when I applied. And it was basically, hey, would you be interested in taking somebody with no experience, interested in taking this program, who's going to move up there for a job someday? And again, because the industry is what it is, I was able to get my foot in the door with that pitch. Like, probably shouldn't have been, but they said they'd at least sponsor me, and they would be my apprenticeship, because basically how this program works is 3 months of school, 3 months of working in the dealership, 6 months of school, 6 months, it's broken down like that over the course of 2 years. And it is a really good program because it gives you hands-on and knowledge at the same time.
And it's not just hands-on like it's hands-on at college, because anybody that's actually done any college programs knows the hands-on in college is not the same as hands-on in the shop. It doesn't matter whether it's an independent or a dealer. It doesn't matter whether it's heavy duty or marine. It does not matter. They are not the same thing, because the stuff at the colleges, it's awesome. You've got these kind of new, sometimes they're ancient, but kind of new-ish, clean, non-corroded, non-rusted, non-marred, well, sometimes they're marred, non-marred equipment that you get to use or break or pull things apart or put things back together.
At our college, we had, it had to be about 2011 Camrys. I can tell you I know that vehicle like the back of my hand, because that's what we worked on, because that's what was donated to Toyota, along with a Tacoma and like one other vehicle. But 2011 Camrys, holy cow, man. We did everything to them. But you're 100% right. Dealership life versus school is different. And we'll go into that more, of course. But so again, I just kind of went into it. I was behind right out of the gate, just full sent into it. No expectations of what to expect, no good or bad, which might have been a savior to me, because if I had heard a lot of what I know now, maybe I would have reconsidered. But again, just be blind and straightforward head first.
Right. And unfortunately, and fortunately at the same time, some of that youthful ignorance speaks is the wrong word. Some of that youthful ignorance plays to our advantage in the industry, because we can kind of get around some of the negativity that exists with that youthful ignorance, because they don't know any better. The challenge right now is to try and make sure that we steer them away from those who are constantly negative, constantly pessimistic. The challenge there is there's a lot of it, right? There's a lot of it right now, and I think there's been a lot of it for a while. Why the phrase at the end of the show is always negative pushes and positive pulls, right? Negative pushes people away. It just pushes people all away, pushes people out, displaces people out of the industry, prevents people from coming into the industry in the first place. And there's a lot of misinformation, and in some circumstances, a lack of information in certain circumstances. But that youthful ignorance, we really need to play to that strong point from every aspect of the dealership, not just service. But I digress. So you're in the T10 program, working on 2011 Camrys. You finished that up after a couple of years. You're cocky, know everything coming out of college. Did you end up working at that store full time right out?
Yeah, they did hire me. I will say through that 2 years was rough, because again, I started with less than I think most do coming in. Most people have done an oil change and knew what that was, and I remember my teacher telling me about 3/8 sockets, and I didn't know what that was. Like, I was the greenest person you're going to find. There's no one else. And anyway,
you're not different from many. You are not different from many. The motorcycle. So I spent 2 years at a power sports store before I came off the bench, hopefully for the last time in my lifetime. But I came off the bench out of a power sports store after just completing my level 1 motorcycle course, not MSF, the actual motorcycle repair course up here in Canada. And one of the courses is tools and hardware. And it's This is a Robertson screwdriver. This is a Phillips head screwdriver. This is a screw. So the understanding that you might not know what a 3/8 socket is, I can understand. But the courses, in theory, are supposed to be designed around making sure those people know what they are by the time they're done.
100%. I think I got it figured out, luckily.
You've lost more 10 mils than you can count, and you've stopped using 3/8 altogether. That still baffles me, though. That's the cool thing. They've got 1/4 inch, 3/8, 3/4, and half and 3/8, or 1 inch, whatever you want to call it. But we still call them those, and yet it's a 10 mil. And even the Japanese, it's a 3/8 socket. It's a 10 mil, and everything is metric, but it still says it's a 3/8 socket.
It's just it's tradition at this point.
It's just tradition.
But yeah, so through those 2 years, I mean, like you said in the intro there, my first day at that dealership, I had told my future mentor, didn't know it, we were just hanging out in the lunchroom. I told him, because I had 3 months of college at this point, and I had explained that I had been welding and stuff like that, and he said the same thing that you said. He's like, what are you doing? Quit. Like, you go do something else. And that was honestly my first experience with negativity. Because at the college, I mean, they didn't tell you any of that. They're not going to go and tell you what's going on in the industry, I think, most of the time. You'll get a couple of people that probably freshly out might coach. But again, it's never going to be the genuineness of a flat rate technician that, is sitting in a lunchroom. Definitely not.
Yeah, definitely not.
So anyway, he had told me, just quit. And again, that's just not me. It never works. People continue to tell it to me today, and it doesn't work.
No, it really doesn't. Again, youthful ignorance. So he became your mentor. So when you got out of college after that 2 years, so 3 months in to college, and your first day on the job for your first three-month stint in the store, and he tells you to quit. Fast forward, another 21 months or whatever the number is. And you're now working with him in the store, and he's turning into your mentor. What changed?
So he was the used car guy, actually. So he was not one of the mainline technicians. But as I kind of mentioned to you, I was a little bit cocky when I was going to school. I have no reason to be, but I was. Again, youthfulness is what you can blame it on. But so none of the mainline guys, they just thought I was just another one of those tech students that knew it all, and they wanted no part of training me. The only guy that stepped up to the plate, his name was Will, and I'll be forever grateful for him, was the guy that told me to quit on day one. And he, I guess, saw potential in me in some way, because he's like, you know what? If you're going to learn on anything, you might as well learn on used cars, right? The dealership own them. If you break something, perfect. So my first 3 months at this Toyota dealership, I was just working on everything. And with him, and he had a mindset that I still carry with me today, which is that if you want to make money in this job, you can do it. It's just you got to work for it. And that's not always easy. And there's obviously factors that control it. But he instilled in me very early on that flat rate wasn't a bad thing, even after telling me to quit on the first day.
See, that's super interesting. That's super interesting that he's not a flat rate advocate, but at the same time is. Yep. And obviously probably generally a negative person, but at the same time funneled positive energy and mentorship and education and leadership into you over a period of time. And you got the benefit of working on not just Toyotas and Subarus, but you got to work on everything because your mentor is a used car, or basically a recon tech who's working on everything, which means you're not going, okay, I do an oil change in a Camry. Okay, I do an oil change on a Camry. Okay, I do an oil change on a Camry. You're going, okay, we're about to do brakes on a 2500 Ram, and then we're going to go drop the rear end on that Ford F-250 that blew it out, the Outback that came in the auction that blew the diff, 10 days after it sat on the lot. And, doing those kinds of things in recon is potentially one of the greatest assets of a young apprentice period.
Yeah.
It's the same. I had the same kind of experience where the five of us as apprentices, the shop foreman would bring us, and I tell the story all the time, he brought us the stuff that nobody could or would or wanted to fix. He brought us all the auction cars that were going to go to the auction anyway, and the reason why they were going to the auction because it was a Christmas tree on the dash, or this, that, or the other was broken, or this didn't work, or whatever, and they figured that out after getting it from the auction, or they're going to send it to you, whatever. We got that experience working on a little bit of everything because we're working on the used cars, right? Or working
Yep.
on all kinds of other things. There's more stories than that I shouldn't know. But that kind of mentorship, working on all kinds of makes and models, also in a dealership is kind of a little bit of best of both worlds, both independent and dealer, because you get the dealer mindset where it's you need to learn efficiency. You must learn efficiency. You have to have that mindset on everything you do, not just this year make and model, right? But you also have to figure out, how do I fix a 20-year-old Volkswagen while I'm at a Toyota store?
Yeah.
Right? That kind of thing. So he's teaching you, you're humming along here. So what's effectively happened in short form between then and now to have you in a position where you're Toyota and Subaru Master certified, so to speak, Master Tech? You are a zone champion, which I don't 100% understand yet, which you're going to tell me. And it led you to be the MyKarma Grand Prix Champion, which, if I understand correctly, was a video MPI challenge, if I'm not mistaken. So what took you from being told to quit 3 months in to now winning championships and Master Tech and so on and so forth? What happened?
Well, I wish I could tell you it was quick and easy, but that would just be straight up lying to everybody. And there's been so many times throughout my journey of my career that all of this awards that you're mentioning there have basically happened in the last 1 to 2. But I've been doing this 8 years now. 2 of those were tech school bouncing between the dealerships. So technically you could say 6 flagging, and it's mechanics are like dog years, right? So it feels like more.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, it can be both. If you're and just a quick pause. I know you're just getting rolling in and I'm interrupting you. My apologies. But one of the things that most don't understand, when you're working 3 jobs to pay the bills, which I know lots of people who have done it. I didn't have to do it. I'm thankful. But working 3 jobs, you're not getting 12 to 16 hours of experience every day. You're getting the 4 to 6 hours in each job each way. It's 3 different experiences, but you're not doubling and tripling down on the thing. As mechanics, when we work 10, 12, 14, 16-hour days, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, we are doubling and tripling the amount of experience gained per year most average people get. So when a mechanic says, for the most part, that they've got 5 years in the trade, they've actually got probably closer to 10 years worth of time, right? So that's where and the iteration comes in. So don't play down or undervalue your only 8 years. Okay, please, anybody out there listening that does the same thing, don't undervalue your 8 years.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, the one pro that I've always said, and I don't know how many people look at flat rate like this, but what it allowed me to do was, again, kind of cheat. Because, again, I didn't have the experience or the qualifications to probably be doing jobs that I should have been, or I was doing, but that was because no one else wanted to do them because they didn't really pay well under flat rate. So immediately out of the gate, I had a fantastic service manager, grateful to him. He was there at the beginning and he told me this piece of advice that I'll pass on to anybody, which is whatever job you suck at, do it more. And for me, I can tell you this is drum brakes. And he loves to bring it up every time I see him and talk about it. And if he's watching this, he'll fully understand. But I hated them. And there's not a lot of them. Luckily, Toyota Tacomas, I don't know if they're still doing them to this day, but they were up until like 2020, still had them. And so he forced me to do what I didn't want to do in a time where I was not financially responsible for a family, a house, a car. I was young. I had just myself. I didn't date at the time. It was just me. And I was able to throw myself into this job 110% for legitimately 4 years of my life. 6 days a week, 14 hours, 12 minimum, just doing stuff that nobody else wanted to do. And the best part about flat rate is there is no overtime. So no one can tell you no to some degree. And they'll let you work. And I made good money too. It's not like I was scraping pennies. If you look at the breakdown of how many hours I was there versus what I was getting paid, of course it would be terrible. But on paper, I looked fantastic, let me tell you. And I threw myself in because I had nothing else to do. And also I just wanted to learn, and I wanted to do the things that nobody else wanted to do. And I wanted to get good at them.
And so, folks, you heard it for like the about 8th time in probably 6 months. Do the jobs no one wants to do. Do the jobs you suck at and get good at them. Willie Carter, Brooklyn Morse come to mind. Josh is saying the exact same thing. Do the jobs nobody wants to do. Get really, really good at them. And you do it long enough, you start winning championships. You start winning medals. You start being able to do the easy things so fast, it'll make your head spin. Do the jobs nobody wants to do. So so now that you've been doing the jobs nobody wants to do, busting your ass for all that time, and so how did let's talk about MyKarma for a second. How did MyKarma come up, and how did that get presented to you? Was that just something that came down the pipe as part of your dealership as a MyKarma user, so it's there?
Yeah, it was just an email that they put out. I've been doing video MPIs for 3-4 years now. I like to think that I was really early on in the conception. I even called it my own thing when I first thought of it, even though the whole industry had already had it by that point, I'm sure. It was time with tech, and I did it. I had X time at my previous place, and I would just record a video and send it to the customer about me just talking about their vehicle. I've always been really good with words, describing things and explaining things simply because I didn't know anything coming into this, so I understand exactly who I'm talking to. So I remember the first video I made on X Time, and I did this, and my service advisor laughed at me. He's like, oh, that's kind of cheesy. I sent it over to a customer, and that customer was actually in our waiting room, and that customer was watching this video in front of 3-4 other customers, and they were like, where's mine? And ever since that, I've always done a video. And I really take it seriously. It's my art to some degree. I try to make it unique, personal, and professional all together. So when I just saw that email, I was like, well, I'm going to at least try to see where I land on it. And yeah, got lucky, I guess, and landed with MyKarma on that Grand Prix.
Brother, not lucky. Not lucky. Right? 4 years of 4 to 6 cars a day, 6 days a week. You know, that's 120 a week. That's 4 to 6. No, that's not 120. That's like 120 a month. 6 cars a day. No, 6 cars a day times 6, 36. It's like 120 a month. Yeah. So you're 114, 140. So you're knocking on 1,000 of those over 4 years. I would say it's nothing to do with luck. I would say that is doing the boring shit that nobody else wants to do, doing the boring shit over and over and over and over again. So you get really good at it and you start making money doing it. When people go, when customers are sitting beside each other going, where's mine? That's indicative of you're doing something right. You should do more of it, because more than likely you and the service advisors that get your work orders as an early adopter are going, my closing rate just went, through the roof. I'm making all this extra money, and we didn't have to do anything extra because the technician is just doing a 30 to 60 second video, right? This is the kind of stuff that we talk about. Like a couple of weeks ago, I made a comment and a post about MPIs, and more importantly, video MPIs, and how it increases closing percentages and how you want to phrase things to increase your closing percentages as a VMPI tech. It's necessary in the marketplace right now. So you got to be doing more and more and more of it. Yep. So the challenge is, and Stefan, if you're watching, this is directly for you in your shop. You've got a tech here. You got another one here saying you got to get the shop doing video MPIs. The customers want them. They need them. They need to trust you. They want to see what you're doing. So you won that. Obviously, it was like a virtual submission. So that's super cool. I'm super glad that MyKarma really put that on. I'm super glad that they did.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I'll be honest with you too. I'll give you a little tidbit here, since I've done these for so long. That MyKarma video actually wasn't complete, because what I've started doing recently is a follow-up video of what I do to a car. So if I'm replacing stuff, I want to show the customer where the money is, because I mean, the biggest problem I think with dealerships is that We have the car goes in, $5,000 bill is sent to the customer. Luckily now we have a video that shows why, but what about the after effect? Your car still looks roughly the same, probably drives the same. Where did my $5,000 go? Is I think what customers want to see. And so my dream and my future is going to be that they're going to get a before and an after, so we can provide what I'm doing at the dealership, because I know we're expensive. I want to show them why we're expensive compared to everybody else, because I'm proud to show off my work and what I do and how I fix their cars.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. We've been preaching doing the proper meet and greets, the proper walkarounds of the car with advisors, making sure they get that right, because that sets the tone for the service visit. The video inspection is the secondary portion of that to make sure that the customer trusts that the vehicle is in good hand and that the things that we're recommending can be trusted. The fact is, the opposite end is also true. The act of delivery by the service advisor is crucial. But now you're adding another layer to that to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, this is your vehicle. We did all this work for it. Here's a few things about the work that we did, and your car is coming back to you clean, or whatever your process in your dealership or your shop is, to build the transparency. That is next level awesome. And here's a question I have for you. Yeah. Do you get paid for those video inspections?
So I get paid for the pre-video inspection. It's not a lot, but it's something. It's a 1/10 for me, though. I've been doing this for free for years, and I would continue to do it, quote unquote, for free.
Interesting.
Just because, again, it's kind of what I give the customers. It makes me feel fantastic, and I love to see the reactions that they get. I like providing that service to them. As long as I'm making money, obviously, like if there's nothing to do and I'm not getting paid, I have to take care of my family. But as long as I'm making good money, I'm going to continue to provide that. And if the dealership pays me, fantastic. And if they want to pay me more, great. But I will do that just because that's what I want to give to the customers.
So from that perspective, it sounds, just to make sure it's clear for anybody that's listening, Josh is getting paid 1/10 to do the video MPI. He's not getting paid to do the follow-up, but he is getting paid 1/10 to do the VMPI. But he'd still do it even if he wasn't getting paid for it, because he's been doing it for free for years. That's how valuable it is to him, and more importantly, that's how valuable it is to his customers, his book of business, as it were. Josh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Now, walk me through a little bit more here, because to do all of that and be a Master Tech for Subaru and Toyota at the same time on all the above, what kind of effort are you putting into your continuing education / career stuff? Like, do you have a designated time every week where you sit down to the computer and do your online courses, or what do you do for that?
So as far as online courses, I get them done as soon as they come in. I don't delay. We don't get paid for those either at my dealership. But again, just being a professional, I want to have all the knowledge that I can possess. And that's just a freebie, comes down from the manufacturer. Sometimes it's inconvenient, but it's something that I feel I should do as a master technician. As far as like how I continue to improve, I take this from Toyota. It's Kaizen, continuous improvement. Every time, usually yearly, I'll kind of look at myself as a technician and look at what I want to go to next, or what I'm trying to build. And I'll be honest with you, as the years go on, it gets a little bit more difficult because you just keep stacking and stacking. But for example, one year my goal was to do the video MPIs on every single car. That was what I set, and now that is built into my process. Last year's goal was to torque every bolt and mark it with a paint pen. And that was my last year's process. As far as like continued education, I've always invested in ASEs because Toyota and Subaru both are heavily invested in those. So I achieved my A1 through A8 when I was in community college. That was very nice for them to, because as you went and did the courses, it's kind of like an easy button for those tests because you have exactly what they're looking for on those tests. And then I went ahead and also got my L1 just outside of that, just after completing school. Now, I'll be honest with you, when I had to recertify those, I did study for them because they weren't as easy as I think when they were in community college. Now, they were easier in some aspects because there is real world experience, but I think anyone who knows who's taken those tests, there is a lot of just book questions on those, you know? So I did recertify those, I think it was last year, and then I added on L2, L3, and L4 along with G1. At the time, it was just something to try to get more money from my service manager.
Fair enough. That's fair.
But now I'm actually looking at trying to go for the world-class certification in ASE, which is basically, I think it's just maintaining the bus certifications and some diesel. And I'm not doing that to make more money. I'm just, at this point, I'm so far into the continuous improvement thing, I'm just going. So, yeah.
It's a way of life.
Yeah.
It's a way of life. It sounds like that's become your way of life. It's interesting to go from you should quit to continuous learning improvement has become kind of your personal mantra through this, because every step of the way you get the college certifications, you get the tech training, you get mentored, you get your Master Tech on one brand, you get Master Tech on another brand, you get your ASEs through community college, you then advance that into L1 through L4, and now you're a video master in the shop to be able to teach it to other technicians and on how to be successful with that. You're now elevating that more to try and get your world class. That is literally living a life of continuous improvement. So that's awesome. And it really kind of eradicates that message where, the more you learn, the less you earn, because that's not the case for you. The more you've learned, the more you've earned, and you can see that grow over a period of time. You wouldn't do all of that extra stuff if it wasn't going to pay you something or give you some kind of reward, whether it's personal or professional. Right? It's got to. And if you're not being rewarded for it, whether it's through your own efforts or the efforts that you're putting in at a business, why would you do it in the first place? Right? So if you're not being rewarded for it in some capacity, don't do it. Or find another shop that will reward you for it. Because anybody that walks into a shop that has 2 brand Master Techs under the belt, plus ASE 1 to 8, A1 to 8, and L1 to 4, you can pretty much tell them what you want to get paid and they're going to pay it. You can pretty much guarantee just about anywhere. If you want whatever money, you could pretty much get whatever money. Now, obviously, you're going to have to back it up with fixed first visit scores that are that are appropriate for your brand, whether it's high or low, depends on the brand. I don't know why they all do it differently. That just gives me a head, but I digress. But good fixed first visit scores and good or better than, actually, not good. Because anybody that's making that kind of money should be making that kind of money. Productivity should be through the roof. So you got to prove yourself in that capacity. But you've got the tools to get paid in that circumstance. So that leads us to our question. What's your one piece of advice outside of continuous improvement? What's your one piece of advice to help technicians be happier, healthier, more productive?
It goes back to kind of what we've talked about with the video thing, is the industry has set itself up so that you can stand out, impressive, make a lot of money very easily, but it's doing the thing that I think no one wants to do, which is not get paid for something. The whole video thing, it leads to more money down the road. It led to successfulness, training and doing my modules and taking all those ASEs, all built to me making more money, as you said yourself. So what I would tell anyone is that this industry is perfect. If you want to make an impact, if you want to change it, and if you want to make money, do things differently. Do the things that people don't want to do. And no technician wants to do things for free. So obviously you got to take care of yourself and make sure you're not getting taken advantage of. But do things for free, give them to customers as a gift, with no expectation of anything in return, and watch your career change forever.
Marvelous. Marvelous. I keep giving that information. It's happy. It makes me happy to have somebody else say the same thing, because those are make sure you're not getting taken advantage of, but at the same time, give without the expectation of receiving, right? Those are the things that really make us successful, because over time, those wins stack up, and then all of a sudden, here's an opportunity that nobody else is going to get. Here's another opportunity that nobody else is going to get because you put all of that effort in. Things like you're in a position now where you've got an opportunity where a new position opened up, right? SQS, I think you were talking about.
Yeah, this is a role that I got to do formally, so I'm not doing it currently, but I take it into every role that I will continue for the rest of my career. Service Quality Specialist is the name, but what it is basically a kind of a catch-all for shops. So technician retention tool, technician recruiting tool, dealing with heated customers that haven't been handled properly by technicians or advisors before, basically eliminating the telephone game. So you would kind of deal with those uncomfortable situations, and as a technician, again, having the technical knowledge but also knowing how to explain it in a very simple way fixes 95% of the problems. You know, honestly, for the future of the service departments, especially at dealerships, I just see the SQS just becoming the normal, is a technician dealing with the customers for a lot more of what we do, because it solves so many issues along the way.
Yeah, the purple telephone really is painful for the guest. It really is. I don't like service advisors. They have the hardest job in the building. They genuinely do. I've been a service advisor. I've been a technician. I haven't sold cars, but I've done administrative work for a dealership. I've done marketing for dealerships. I still kind of do marketing for dealerships. I've done just about everything you can do in a dealership except actually be on the sales floor to sell cars. I've sold cars. I got 36 bird dogs in my career as an advisor, so I've technically sold cars in that manner, but I've never formally been on the sales floor selling cars. Service advisors have the hardest job in the building. They are expected to have as much. Customers assume and expect that advisors have the same technical knowledge as a technician does. That ain't ever going to happen unless they were a technician. And even if they were a technician, the likelihood that they have 15, 20 years of experience on the shop floor under the belt and then became an advisor is slim. Usually people are technicians first, go, I don't like this, after between a year to 3 years, and get off the bench. They don't have adequate skills, experience, and knowledge to go, I know everything about the car to a degree so I can explain simply, as you say, Josh. So alleviating the purple telephone, say, okay, customers call in. Okay, I now got the phone. I am the SQS of this building. Who do I need to talk to? Okay, I'm talking to you. Okay, put you on mute. I'm now getting information. Okay, off mute. Mr. and Mrs. Customer, this is what's occurred. Yes, I understand that we made a mistake in explanation. I apologize for this miscommunication. At the end of the day, your vehicle is in fact fixed. I've now quality control tested the vehicle. We're delivering this vehicle back to you at 4 o'clock today. Yes, we're taking care of that. We're going to deliver it back to you. You do not have to come to the dealership. Click. End of chat. We're good. You leave the call, the email. That is the kind of thing that we need to do for our customers, especially as dealerships, because there are so many moving parts that small shops, independent shops don't have to deal with. Customer walks in, talks to the person fixing the car. That's it.
Done.
There's no purple telephone. It's literally line of sight, right? So to that point, going from SQS, now here's the big thing here. Through all of that, you got married and had a kid.
Yeah. Life-changing. Yeah. Near the point where I had started achieving success professionally, I finally, I met the woman that I would marry, and she has supported me so well in this career. But I will tell another piece of advice here. I flat out told her first date, I was like, I work a lot and I love what I do. And if that's going to be a problem, like we shouldn't have
a second date.
And she's luckily, respects that. And obviously she toes that line with me, especially now with the family. Oh my gosh, that balance, you got to be careful with it. But she's always been my balance when it comes to that stuff. She tells me if it's gone too far or if I'm investing too much time. Luckily now I'm in a place that I can not have to work 12, 14-hour days every day. But when we first got together, I was still very much in that. I told her that right out of the gate. So hopefully it's paying off for her too in the long-term investment.
functionally speaking, you're talking about being able to eloquently and clearly communicate something simply on the shop floor, whether as a technician through a VMPI, SQS, whatever the case may be. It's being able to clearly communicate, set boundaries, focus on the work that needs to be done, and at the end of the day, go home, right? Being able to achieve those things, improving your communication, improving those things so that you can eloquently and simply communicate to customers. It's the same thing with our spouses. The better that you can communicate, everything changes. The more often you can communicate simply so that everybody gets it, the better things go. So that ties nicely. So here we have the surprise question, which I've now asked concurrently on every guest that I've interviewed in the last little bit, is I've asked the very first person to ask a question for the next person. So the person I just interviewed was Keith Tanaka, who isn't aired yet either. But his question, he had to answer a question from him. He answered a question, and his question for you, which he didn't know who it was, and I didn't know who it was because I've got a whole bunch of books. It's just in the order that they're going to come out now. So Keith, who is a technician.
Perfect.
His question to you was, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's a good manager question. Honestly, just on the path that I'm going, I can't tell you exactly what, but I know I'm going to be better, more educated, hopefully winning more stuff along the way, and I hope to change the industry. My long-term goal of my career, no matter what, is to leave an impact and show that this industry is not all bad. There's problems. We all know it. You hear it all day long. I do too. I want to help change it, and that's why I'm here on this podcast today and why I will continue to put myself out there and do things differently.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Speaks to my heart. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. We really do need to make an impact on this industry. There's a lot of folks out there that are suffering in silence. Unfortunately, they've made a lot of sacrifices too big for themselves, and unfortunately the loved ones around them. We need to change this industry so that we knock mechanics off that top 3 suicide list. We need to do everything we can to do so. As often as we can do so, inject as much positivity as we possibly can. As often as we can to as many people as we can. So I appreciate that very, very much. So on that note, what would be your question for the next guest?
I would just ask them how they're going to change the industry.
I'm making the note now. That is awesome. Oh, that's awesome. That is... I'm going to need to take a moment in a bit. Josh, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you very, very much for giving us a little bit of your time.
Thanks for having me.
So, folks, I think we're gonna cap it there today on that bombshell. That I'm struggling to be super excited, even though I'm really, really happy. That's another episode in the books for Wrenches, and I really hope that you've enjoyed the show. I really hope that you hit that like button, the subscribe button. We really appreciate every single one of those. Really helps the channel grow. We're knocking on 200,000 views across YouTube on the shorts and the long form. We're knocking on 15,000 listens on Spotify. So every little bit that you guys share, subscribe, like, comment, helpful in so many ways to spread that message of positivity across the board. And as we always end with a quote, and it's an awesome quote for today: wherever you go, no matter what the weather, always bring your own sunshine. Anthony D'Angelo. Remember, folks, negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you put them away.